We're going to talk about mobile bank and payment apps and give you some tips on how you can safely use those. And then just our little disclaimer, the presentation is not meant to serve as a substitute for reading any laws that we discuss, seeking legal counsel, or otherwise requesting department guidance or interpretations on laws we administer and enforce. We're just trying to give an introduction overview of the subject matter. So let's talk about what mobile bank or payment apps are. So a payment app works like a digital wallet. You download the app to your smartphone and you create an account. You link your bank account information or credit cards to the app. And then you use the app to make payments at stores or send money to people you know or receive money. And I will say there is just kind of one little caveat there about payments at stores. So a lot of these mobile bank or payment apps, they're also called peer-to-peer mobile payment apps because it's usually you're giving money to a peer, to a friend or a family member. But they recommend not using it to make payment at stores. So once you decide that you want to utilize the app or receive money from the app, then you can move forward in doing so. We're going to give you some tips there too, but just want to give you a little caveat on when you receive money, because a lot of folks don't realize how that aspect of the mobile bank or payment app works. But once you get the payment, someone sends the payment to you, the money does not go into your bank account. It'll appear in your app's account balance, and then you can decide what you want to do with it. So you can either leave the money there, you can send the money to someone else through the app, or you can transfer that money to the bank account. So according to the Federal Trade Commission, mobile payment app fraud increased in 2020. With some of the apps that increased by as much as 472%. And here are some of the complaint data that we have from the FTC for 2021 so far. So there have been over 2,400 complaints against Cash App, 845 against Venmo, 191 against Zelle. And when you're looking at complaints, it's not necessarily meaning that one app is actually better over another. It's just letting you know what consumers who've utilized these different kind of payments apps have had concerns. When you're picking what kind of app to use, you want to look at reviews, you want to look at complaints, and not only just the fact that a complaint exists, but how the business responded to that complaint. And you might even be able to pull out some tips for you by looking at complaints for how you can better utilize that payment app. So now we have a little bit of background on the apps. Let's talk about the scams. So it's not surprising that a lot of the scams that we see being perpetrated in different methods or through different avenues are now also being perpetrated through these apps. So traditionally, when we have scammers come out, they want payment by gift card or prepaid card, or back in the day it was always wiring money, because these are ways that you can't really track where that money is going, and it's like paying cash. So these bank and payment apps come along and they provide a new avenue for scammers to receive funds from their scams. So some of these things may sound familiar to you. The game never changes, especially the underlying goal. So fake COVID-19 programs, scammers follow the headlines. So we've seen COVID grant relief program scams through apps that ask for payment or ask you to advance fees to receive certain benefits related to COVID. Lottery or giveaway scams that claim you've won a prize for being vaccinated, but then of course you have to provide taxes or something upfront through that app. And scammers who are offering to send you a quote unquote government issued test kit for COVID for a low price of $19.99. And the chances of you receiving that are slim to none. So something that's new with this payment app or payment app scams is cash flipping. Now we've seen it on Twitter, we've seen it in different social media, but it really seems to have taken off with these payment apps. So essentially, someone will ask you to send money via the mobile payment app. If you send $10, then you'll get $1,000, or you otherwise will double or triple that original amount. And the scammers claim they can modify or flip the transaction after it's been posted, because either they are a customer service rep for that particular app, so it allows them to change the value in whatever payment service is being used on the back end, or that they have software that allows them to do that as well. And so essentially what it comes down to is they're asking the victim or the person they're requesting the funds from to provide them with a small cut for these services that of course aren't really being provided. So this should sound familiar as well. So there's surveys and contest entry scams. You know, you're asked to submit your app ID, verify your information, or you're sent a link for you to click on to take a particular survey about an app, a payment app. And then the hook, of course, if you send us that information or if you fill out the survey, you'll have a chance to get money. Here's some examples of that. We have a Venmo one where someone is sent that they've been selected to receive a free gift worth at least $100 as long as they click that survey. And what do you think happens if they click that survey? That phone in your hand is just like a computer. So it could be some kind of malware or keylogger that gets downloaded on that. And then to the right, we see a Cash App scam where all they're doing is asking for your Cash App ID. And then they'll go ahead and send you $100, but then now they have your ID. And so they may decide to create one very similar to that so that hopefully folks who are trying to send you money will send them money or whatever else. Or it could be even that if you click on something, again, malware could be downloaded. And then once you sign up for these apps or whatever else, the scammers may use a different venue via email to let you know that something is wrong with that particular account. And so you either need to click a link that's in that email or you need to verify your information. And then of course, likely you'll be sent to a phishing website or a spoofed website that looks like the particular app, but it's not. And this is an example of a PayPal phishing email. You know, your account has been suspended as an error was detected in your informations, y'all. Isn't these red flags? I mean, you can always look at grammar for sure, but then you can also hover over an email address to see where it's coming from, to see the actual address. That's also a way to kind of sparse out what is not a real email. So anyhow, this is an example there. If you ever get something like this from any kind of vendor, we recommend that you contact that vendor directly at a number or contact that you know belongs to that vendor. Don't use anything that's in the email so that you can verify, which 9 times out of 10, you won't get an email for that. They'll contact you in another method. And then tech support. So we see a lot of tech support scams these days, but now, you know, they may be asking for payment via Venmo or some other account app. Other examples of scams, new job offers that requires you to pay something up front, or they're requesting that you move someone else's money via your app. A new landlord wants to pay a rent deposit, but you haven't gotten any paperwork, you know, you haven't met them. There's other red flags there. And then someone who's pressuring you to send money because of a crisis, right? You know, Joe Bob went down to Mexico for spring break. He doesn't want anybody else to know, but if you can please just Venmo me or Cash App me or otherwise send me the money. So these are all examples of scams that we see everywhere, oftentimes, again, using wiring or prepaid cards as a vehicle for sending the money. But now that we have these payment apps that have increased in use, especially during COVID, we're seeing that pop up there too. All right, so now that we have, I don't want to say scared you, but made you aware of the different issues that may arise through these apps, we're going to let you know how to safely use mobile apps, some tips. So first, when setting up the app or setting up your account with the app, make sure that you reviewed their fraud protection policies as well as their privacy policies for that matter, and understand whether and how you can recover funds if a problem arises. Link your money transfer app to a credit card instead of a debit card or your bank account. So credit cards have a lot of protection. You've probably heard us say before that if you're shopping online, you most certainly should use a credit card over a debit card because they have a higher fraud protection for how much money you would be responsible for paying of a fraudulent transaction, as well as you're not out the money, right? Otherwise, a debit card, they have a direct line to your account. They could bleed you dry, and then it could take 6 to 8 weeks for your bank to look into that and refurbish your money back to the account if they find that it is fraud. So again, you can link it to a credit card. I've also heard of some people opening up a separate checking account solely to link to their payment app and only putting a certain amount of money in there to help protect it as well. Set up a passcode, PIN, or fingerprint before making a payment. So it's kind of a two-factor authentication here that some of the apps will, before you send a payment to someone, request this passcode, PIN, or fingerprint. So this is different from the password you're going to use to actually set up the account and log into account. It's something that would be used prior to you making a payment. It's kind of like your verification that, yes, you are the one who is trying to make this payment. When you use an app for the first time, it usually asks for permission to access certain items on your phone, including your contacts list. So weigh whether or not you want them to have access to that. And if you don't, then deny it. Just be aware of it. Strong password. So for the account itself, you certainly want to have a strong password. Now, it used to be 12 characters. Before that, it was like 9 characters. Now they're recommending 15 characters. You want it to be unique. You don't want it to be used for any of your other accounts. Again, especially because you're linking it to some kind of a financial account. If somebody got, that, but then you're also using it for your email or a different bank account or your online banking or whatever, they could get into those accounts too. So you want to make sure that it is a unique password specifically for this app. And disable automatic logins. It's very convenient when you pull something up, but that's also a way that a scammer or somebody who gets your phone, if they steal your phone and they're able to hack into it, could get into that particular mobile bank app as well. Some additional tips: don't send money to anyone you don't know or recognize. So that could be anybody who is asking you to complete a survey, or a landlord or whatever, somebody who you have not met, who you do not know, who you do not recognize. If you get a cash request from someone you do recognize, call or contact them using a number you know to be right. Double check before you hit send. So even if you are engaged in a legitimate transaction, you know that it's going to your friend, it's all a legitimate setup. If you put in the wrong email address or the wrong phone number or the wrong name, whatever it is that ties that person to their app, it could go to the wrong hands. So just double check before you hit send. Ask your friend to send a request from the app. So that's something that some apps do permit. And we see that up in bullet 2 where we reference if you get a cash request, you do want to verify it. But the cash or the request form from the app essentially gives you the direct line to that person's account too. So that's helpful. So you're not entering in the information. So hopefully less mistakes will occur there too. But you still want to verify. It still does not hurt to text your friend or to pick up the phone and make sure you got everything correct. So what happens if you accidentally do have an issue, whether or not you sent it to the wrong person or you're a victim of a scam? What do you do? So first up, you need to report the scam to the mobile payment app and ask them to reverse the transaction right away. And the faster you do this from the time that you send it, the more successful you'll be in getting this done. So this is just kind of a spreadsheet chart for the different companies, the different issues you can contact them for, and then how you get to them. You also want to make sure that you contact your bank, whatever account that you have, if it's your credit card company because you have a credit card link there, or if you do have a debit card or an account number, which again, think about that carefully on what you want to link your app to. You need to contact that financial institution immediately and let them know about it as well. The faster you do this, the better off that you'll be in the long run, and you can most certainly contact our office for any assistance throughout this process. You can also report your complaint to us. We share information with the Federal Trade Commission's Consumer Sentinel. They collect information nationwide from different folks that collect complaints, law enforcement, better business bureaus, consumer protection agencies, and consolidate them. It helps figure out patterns, practices, areas where companies may need to improve, enforcement actions that may need to take place, so on and so forth. You can file that complaint or make us aware through our Identity Theft Unit by going to consumer.sc.gov or calling toll-free at 800-922-1594 to report that scam. It also helps us alert others. There's always little twists and nuances to the kind of scams that folks do. Again, bottom line always stays the same, but to let us know, like using apps for a particular scam that we may not know of, so we can get it out to the press and they can make folks aware in hopes that they don't become victims. For additional information on scams and topics like we've covered today, feel free to connect with us through social media. Like I said earlier, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter and YouTube. We also have publications that you can get for free. Ditch the Pitch, which is our scam guide. You can get that. We have Identity Theft Protection Guide, Credit Report Guide, and dozens more of information that you may find beneficial. I would also suggest that you share the information you learned today with your teenagers, as well as your college students or young adults, because oftentimes we are seeing scammers take advantage of that age group, as well as our top tier age group, which is, you know, like 65 plus, I would say. But sharing this information and making people aware, that is going to help them not become victims, and just giving them the steps. We automatically think that, oh, they're young, they're tech savvy, but when it comes to scams, they're also very trusting. So we want to make sure that they're aware and have the tools they need to not become a victim as well.